Hi guys, I'm Adam Wilborn from WhatCulture.
And I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture, and today it's unfortunately one of those videos where we have to start things off on a tragic note by reporting the passing of independent wrestler Grant Birkland, who worked as Danny Havoc. He was just 45 years old. Game Changer Wrestling, one of his old home promotions, broke the news overnight. We've seen tributes pouring in from all corners of the wrestling universe, from people who worked with him. He's one of these guys who, you know, even if you hadn't seen a lot of his work, if you have a quick look at social media today, it's gushing tributes from across. It's another person that we've lost over the past couple of weeks who nobody has anything but great things to say about. This was the case long before he passed away. Well-respected member of that community, rose to prominence in CZW, debuted in 2005, became a major figure over the next decade or so, retired in 2017, came out of retirement this year to wrestle for GCW on their Japanese tour. It's a really horrible, tragic situation, and our deepest thoughts and condolences go out to Birkland's closest friends and family. Just an awful period for them at the time, considering his wife actually passed away 2 months ago as well through heart failure. Can't imagine what people close to them are going through at the moment. So once again, our deepest thoughts and condolences to Danny Havoc and his friends and his family. I don't know how we roll into, other news stories, but we're going to do that. We're here today. We're going to talk a little bit here about the next WWE main roster call-up, if we can even call them that anymore. Dominik Dijakovic appears to be the next wrestler moving from NXT, following in the footsteps of Matt Riddle. We kind of knew this was coming. We had a Fightful report last week stating that more wrestlers were set to follow Matt Riddle from NXT to Raw or SmackDown. WrestleTalk actually came through with the report on Dijakovic over the weekend, but they didn't disclose the brand he was heading to. Dave Meltzer has come through with a report saying that he's going to Raw. Time period is undisclosed. We don't know when he's going to show up, but it seems to be on the cards. Dijakovic has been with WWE since 2017. His last match for NXT was on the 29th of April when he did the job to Johnny Gargano, losing on his way out of the territory, seemingly. He's done quite a fair bit. Interesting parallels with Keith Lee, although Keith Lee has broke out on a different level, I think, to Dijakovic. He's the North American champion, tipped for major stardom. Dijakovic hasn't quite hit that same level. He leaves NXT without having captured the North American Championship, which was in his sightlines for a long, long time. Be interesting to see what he can do on the main roster for. He's a big, beefy boy, known for his freak athleticism. Let's see when he shows up and what he can do.
Yeah, exciting times for Matt Riddle as well. I got very excited by the way they introduced him on SmackDown on Friday. Seems like they are set for big things with him. But yeah, really excited for Dijakovic as well. When we were initially finding out about this story about potential NXT wrestlers making the leap to Raw or to SmackDown, he was one of the names we suggested. We were talking about him, maybe someone like a Keith Lee. I think one of the bigger boys would make a lot more sense. Obviously, Ciampa and Gargano have kind of done everything in NXT. But they've committed themselves to NXT in the past, and you just can't see them in the land of the giants on Monday Night Raw in particular. And yeah, if I was going to pick a place for Dijakovic to go, it would be Monday Night Raw. I think obviously he's had that epic feud with Keith Lee down in NXT, although they didn't obviously create that initially. But beyond that, considering he's kind of done everything he can in and around that NXT North American Championship, and he was never going to challenge for the world title on NXT. Yeah, chucking him on Monday Night Raw and having a 7-foot guy just chuck around some more blokes, I can see it, and I think it's going to be a decent little fit for him,
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of these guys who pretty much just run out of things to do in NXT. I mean, if you're not going to give him the North American Championship, like a run towards the top belt, the NXT Championship, seemed unlikely for Dijakovic. Move him around to another brand, and they don't consider these things call-ups anymore. These things are now considered lateral moves within WWE. It's not the main roster anymore. Everything we know has kind of been reshaped over the past 6 months to a year. So it's an interesting step. I hope he does well. He's a very impressive specimen, and I've always been a big fan of his work, going back to Evolve and Beyond and other promotions. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think he needs this fresh start over on Raw, and I think he can do big things. I just hope we get to see, transitions from Raw and SmackDown to NXT, and not just because someone's, crap or has just run out of steam. I think, the hottest talent should still be appearing on NXT as well, just as you're trading between them, because that's what gets fans excited, because we all fantasy book matches into brand matches, especially when it comes around to Survivor Series, and the potential of someone to kind of complete everything they've done on Raw and SmackDown and go to NXT. We speculated about the potential of Sami Zayn, for example, going back there. is really exciting. So hopefully this is a sign of more things to come, with hopefully more stars going in the opposite direction to NXT. Further developments with WWE recently regarding their situation with talent, staff, and wages, basically. Apparently, Dave Meltzer has broken the story on Wrestling Observer Radio on Saturday night. PW Insider following up with more details. They are apparently going to cut costs in the wake of the ongoing global bastard. They are cutting pay for producers and referees by as much as 20%. Now, on the one hand, Andy, this can be arguably argued as understandable. You know, it's a completely different world we are living in particular for wrestling right now. And it's not as bad as furloughing staff like we've seen in the past, or just outright getting rid of them like we saw on Black Wednesday. But at the same time, we have to always add to this the caveat that they are still going to make record-breaking figures probably this year.
Yeah, they're on course to make a record-breaking profit. I vehemently, in the strongest possible terms, disagree with any argument that this is in any way justified. It's good that these people haven't lost their jobs, right? But they're still losing 20% of their income. It's a tough situation, a very tough time. You know, we've said it all about WWE and these cost-cutting measures lately. An interesting nugget that was an interesting little nugget of information that was included in this report actually is the Dave Meltzer reporting that if a wrestler is asked to take a pay cut per the terms of their contract, they can actually become free agents and negotiate with other groups. So no word on whether or not this is true for referees and producers, and if maybe they'll consider, you know, talking to other companies or not. But it's an interesting little thing regardless. It's just WWE continuing to, you know, save as much money as possible when really they don't need to.
No, exactly. It feels like this is a drop in the ocean compared to what they can make. But, you know, needs must, I suppose, or at least they must in their eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about something a little bit more positive. AEW Dynamite this week. An unlikely wrestler might have been responsible for the peak viewership on that show. The peak viewership on that show was over 1 million viewers. Good stuff. Who sparked that? Was it Chris Jericho? No. Was it Mike Tyson? No. Was it Cody? No. It was Orange Cassidy. This is pretty cool. Orange Cassidy. So this data is included, although it's available to everyone. It's highlighted in today's daily news update column on Figure 4 Online, the Wrestling Observer, talking about how from the moment Orange Cassidy re-entered the Battle Royal on this week's episode of Dynamite, viewership was over 1 million. So people, you know, when he got beaten up in the opening stage and he came back into the match later on, that old trope, which Tony Khan apparently himself came up with in this particular example, Orange Cassidy, 1 million viewers, including 500,000 in 18 to 49-year-olds. That's the key demo, of course. This follows on with trends that we've seen from Orange Cassidy, and you know, every single week it seems like this guy's quarter-hour numbers go up. People tune in for the guy. So, you know, not liking the guy's work is fine. If you don't enjoy the act, totally cool. Subjective. You know, it is what it is. But we now have objective data to say that this guy is pulling in viewers to a certain extent. So this is working out a lot better for Orange Cassidy in AEW than a lot of people might have thought beforehand, and he's become one of the most popular guys in the company and now a valuable commodity when it comes to the viewership as well.
Yeah, great news for fans of Orange Cassidy, and we've sort of half-jokingly suggested them putting a title on him, whether it be, maybe probably not the world title, but at the very least the TNT Championship. And just hearing news like this has me thinking, so you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah, I think for fans of his, you are glued to the television when there's even a hint of him potentially showing up, just because he's so inventive. And yes, like we say, he can be a quite divisive figure, but for fans who enjoy him, and like you say, especially particularly for that age range which they are aiming at, he does seem to be cutting through, so I'm going to be very interested to see what they do with him next. I mentioned the TNT Championship there, and some further interesting developments coming out on Twitter over the weekend when Cody responded to a fan asking about who could be the person to challenge him for that TNT Championship. Of course, last week he announced he was going to be challenging every single week on TV, and when a fan asked whether non-AEW wrestlers could take a shot at him, he responded yes. So this blows the field wide open for people we could see coming in and challenging him. Obviously, there's excitement every week regardless, because it could just be anyone from the roster who decided to take a shot at him. Could be Lance Archer, could be Orange Cassidy, could be Rey Fenix. You're probably guaranteed, though, to have a pretty decent match when Cody's involved with it all. But it's going to be very interesting to see fans speculate and where things go now, from the fact that, yes, obviously you can think of indie wrestlers, you can think of wrestlers who work for the likes of New Japan and Ring of Honor. You could even suggest potential celebrity challengers to this championship, but it makes the whole thing a lot more intriguing, Andy Murray.
Yeah, it does. I, for one, am looking forward to the challenge of Mickey Gooch following his appearance on last week's Dynamite. Now, this is cool. I mean, it's kind of an interesting situation because AEW hasn't forged relationships that we know of with companies like Ring of Honor and New Japan, so it kind of limits who they can bring in to a certain extent, but at the same time, it opens up all kinds of interesting possibilities. It guarantees unpredictability. The idea that some big name indie guy could show up. Maybe Jeff Cobb, who worked on a freelance basis. I know he's with Ring of Honor and stuff, but he had that freelance appearance as Chris Jericho's hired gun to face John Moxley and stuff. You're going to get people like that showing up. And I, for one, am waiting for the real appearance from the real standout of indie wrestling in 2020, Gangrel.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see which indie wrestlers, which wrestlers who aren't even assigned with promotions could make a challenge for that title. Simon Miller!
Simon Miller. Oh, I got a cheeky little like from Cody this morning, brothers. You know, I'm not saying it's happening, but it's definitely happening. I don't know, I'm just making crap up. Interesting milestone for Dolph Ziggler on this week's episode of SmackDown. So in competing in that Battle Royal, which was to determine who would replace Jeff Hardy in the Intercontinental title tournament, that was actually Dolph Ziggler's 500th televised match since becoming a singles competitor in 2006. 500 matches! Nobody else in the company has done that within the same window since 2006. In fact, the closest and the only other people who have broken 400 are Randy Orton and The Miz. So Dolph Ziggler is streets ahead. It's a nice little accomplishment for one of the most tenured wrestlers in the company. His days as a top contender are probably done. I think it's quite safe to say that, right? Dolph Ziggler's maybe never going to be WWE champion again or whatever, but you know, he remains a pushed commodity. He's one of the guys in the heart of one of the company's best developed stories this year, the Mandy Otis, Sonya Deville thing, still rumbling on there. So good for him. A nice little thing for him to hang his hat on once more. You know, he's going to get in the Hall of Fame one day, and things like this are going to be brought up when he is.
Yeah, you know, we moan about Dolph quite a lot, but we should give credit where it's due. He's a loyal company man who's dedicated his life to him. He has come a long way since being the caddy to Kerwin White, or that time when he used to shout, Nicky or Mikey or whoever it was. I can never remember which one he was in Spirit Squad. Also, Andy Murray, just speaking about Dolph Ziggler, before we move on to these Twitter questions, do you remember that one week when he was aligned with Vicky Guerrero, and one week they were like, yeah, get rid of the blonde out of your hair, just dye it brown, and everyone was like, oh no, it's generic, man.
Yeah, that was not a good decision, was it, brother?
Those blonde locks came flying back very quickly, I seem to remember. But yes, congratulations, Dolph Ziggler. Well deserved. Right, should we move on to our Twitter questions? At WhatCulture WWE, of course, if you want to get in touch with us. First question today comes from Jason Sawatka, who says, would you guys be interested in seeing Dominic turn on his father Rey Mysterio and join Seth Rollins' fashion? Of course, tonight on Monday Night Raw is allegedly, according to WWE, Rey Mysterio's retirement.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a tricky question because it makes sense in theory and you can logically book that, but I'm going to take the boring guy answer and think about how far along Dominic is in his development as a professional wrestler. I would only like to see something like that come about if he was ready to be a full-time TV performer and a wrestler. We know he's been training and stuff, and he's obviously learning from one of the best ever in his father. But, you know, it's a long, slow, hard process, and if he's ready for a role, I'd be totally on board with that. But if it's just like a one-off thing, I'm not so keen.
What do I always say, Andy? If you're ready to be F5'd, you're ready. Let's see it happen. I don't know why. I've not got anything against Dominic, and I certainly don't have anything against my best friend Rey Mysterio. But there's a weird part of me that just would love to see Dominic get the crap kicked out of him. And this is the one step on the road to that. It's ever since I was denied Samoa Joe attacking him at WrestleMania during their match that him and Rey Mysterio had. I just want to see, I don't know why, I just want to see this now. And yeah, it would, I don't know whether it'd muddy the waters or not. because I think they've got a great faction now with Murphy and Austin Theory in there. It might muddy the waters a little bit that it's all, ooh, I'm going to recruit your children. But yeah, interesting, potential, good suggestion.
Yeah.
Right, second question today comes from IIRon17 on Twitter, who says, with Matt Riddle heading to SmackDown and other moves being made on the roster, where does that leave Roman Reigns? Obviously, he's out indefinitely for the time being, but does he come back to a top slot on the card? Really good question, this.
Yeah, I think he'll be in a top program straight away. Obviously, when he recovered from his illness, they were a bit more patient, building him up slowly and keeping him away from the title for a long, long time. But I don't know. I just have an inclination that they're gonna an inkling. What word am I looking for?
You got it.
Tell me the words. There we go. That they're just gonna throw him straight back into the fire for better or worse. I think people will be happy to see him after so long away as well.
Again, we said this, before. That obviously, it's a tough situation with Roman Reigns, considering what he's been through. But then the character he portrays, I just want to see more blending of Joe with Roman Reigns, because Joe, the character, the person who plays Roman Reigns, everyone likes him. So why not lean into that rather than him coming back and being like, right, pop the flak jacket back on, and I'm a superhero again. It's just like. Everyone knows about this. Even though they're thinking, well, we're not going to mention his name on TV or whatever, fans don't forget about the guy who literally starts the show by punching the floor every single week on SmackDown. He's one of the biggest stars, in the last 5-10 years of WWE. People are still aware of his absence, even if you don't mention him on TV. So, yeah, I'd say I'm fine with bringing him back in a prominent role, but don't say, oh, I've been away because I've been punching other big dogs whilst I've been away. Just explain why he's been away, and then, we had this when he came back from leukemia. Don't squander this public support you have for him by just making him a generic cookie cutter good guy.
Yeah.
He's a real life person with real life issues that fans can relate to and get behind. It's really easy. As Adam Cleary says, it's so easy to book WWE. Right, final question today comes from Prakash Panda on Twitter, who says that WWE just uploaded a top 5 Adam Cole title reign moments video on their YouTube. Do you think this means he's losing the title, moving over to Raw, as Matt Riddle moved over to SmackDown? Of course, takeover in your house this coming weekend, Andy Murray.
It is indeed. It's a tough question. I think that maybe the release of that video was just to coincide with his 365 days as champion, which I think passed yesterday.
Yes,
maybe?
I think so, yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that is a sign that he's going to lose the belt this weekend. And, the question I would ask there is, Dream ready for it? I mean, I think the build for his title shots hasn't been particularly great. I didn't like the whole deliberately throwing the match, and I lost the cage match, so now I get a title shot, even though it was passed off as some kind of mind game. That didn't hit with me, and going straight back to it, I don't know, man. I really like the Velveteen Dream, but to me, he's a performer who is more dependent on the crowd than a lot of people in WWE, and to have him win in this environment doesn't feel quite right. So I think Adam Cole's going to retain. I think he's going to be in NXT for a while longer, and I'm fine with that because he's great.
Yeah, a few things to tackle here. I am more and more inclined to believe that the whole Britt Baker, maybe he goes to AEW thing, may have just been, and this is casting no aspersions on the couple, them trying to get a little bit more money out of WWE, because he's a phenomenally talented guy.
Yeah.
I, for one, actually liked when he threw that match against, was it Roddy Strong he was facing?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that storyline, but the subsequent match and everything that's gone with it, I'm not a huge fan of. Having said all that, I cannot wait for Sunday if they give them the proper cinematic treatment, because I feel like that is something that could work really well for Velveteen Dream, and also Adam Cole can get something out of that. I'm a huge fan of what he can do. I don't see him leaving and going to, certainly not to Raw, just due to the fact that, oh my God, he'd be eaten alive there just because Vince wouldn't understand what makes him popular and why he was. Look at the other people who've been NXT champion for over a year and how they've been dealt with on the main roster. Please, Adam, just stay where you are, baby.
Yeah,
okay,
please.
Let's move on to today's and finally, and it's more of a personal appeal this rather than anything funny. WWE yesterday tweeted out, at WWE Apollo will be putting the US title on the line tomorrow night on Raw against an opponent of his choosing. Who do you think it will be? I want all of you, every single one of you, to go on there and tweet them his his former partner from Titus Worldwide. Can you imagine Apollo versus Titus? And then obviously Titus wins the title. And realise Apollo would have held the title for 1 week. But I don't care. Put the title on Titus. Just spam them. This is like, Cyber Sunday all over again. Spam that with Titus O'Neil, please.
Let's do it, baby.
Oh, they're going to block us, aren't they? Right. Yep. Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. And join myself, Michael Sidgwick, and someone else, hopefully, at 4 p.m. here on What Culture's YouTube channel as we look ahead to tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw, deal with any breaking news, and answer all your burning wrestling questions. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts and Twitter questions on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. And while you're there, follow both of us. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hope You're Doing Alright. Hope you're holding it together. This is crazy, awful, just a horrendous time to be alive. I hope you're doing well.
Exactly. Stay safe, everyone. You can follow me at Adam Wilmore. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.